Elizabeth. Very welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
I was trying to get my dog to stop barking because she hears your voice.
Oh,
So
I'm
she's like,
sorry.
hey, I might need to get my husband to come get her. Do I have enough time to
Yeah,
do
you
that?
take your time.
Okay,
We got
let me
started a
just
little
take her
early here.
downstairs.
Okay,
Hello, I'm back.
men. Ja, nu. Great to see you back. And we are so happy to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
It's evening here, but you are somewhere far away. It's earlier
Yes,
in the
I'm in
day
Seattle.
in Seattle.
Yes, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh, yes. Well, you have spent almost, or a little more, I would guess, than 35 years together with Thomas Lindley and Barbara Havers.
I have.
That's a long time. Do you ever get tired of them and feel like just killing them off?
No, from the very beginning, I set out to create characters that
Hey.
I liked because I was serious and I felt it was important to create characters that I was going to be happy spending a lot of time with. So right now I'm working on the 22nd of the novels,
Wow.
and Lindley and Havers are in the book. So and when I see them when they come onto the page, I've got to say that I feel like I'm meeting old friends again.
So, did you picture that there would be so many books about them when you first started? Or did you
No,
saw
not
a long
really.
series in front of you already?
No, I hoped that they would be, enjoyed by people enough that I could write another book and then another book and then another book. Actually happened in United States is that before the first book was published, I had the next book already written, which was lucky because I was given a 2-book contract. And by the time the second book was published, I think I actually had the third and the fourth book written.
Wow.
So for a while I had, some what we would say wiggle room as far as the time required to get my books done. But now I don't have that because they finally caught up with me. So I was I was given a 2-book contract right in the beginning, and then they upped it to another 2-book contract, et cetera, et cetera. So I could see that there was some general acceptance of the books, but I had no way of knowing that it would be something that would go on for so many years.
No, I just told the audience here that the first one was published in 1988, so that is
That's right.
a while ago.
Right.
Do Thomas Lindley and Barbara Havers still surprise you? Can they still surprise you after all these years?
I don't know if I would say they surprise me. Sometimes some of the things Barbara says or does surprises me because she is very much her own character, and she has this sort of looseness about her that Lindley does not have because he is fairly tightly bound to his past and the constraints of being a member of the upper class. So he's pretty tightly wound and to himself, whereas Havers has always been, as what we would say, all over the place.
Yeah. Your latest novel here in Sweden, that is out here in Sweden, is Something to Hide, and also in some of the other recent novels, Lindley and Havers have a new colleague called Winston and Kata. And he's very young, he's very ambitious, and he has an interesting background. I think most of the people here in the audience are very familiar with Lindley and Havers, but can you tell them a little bit about Winston and your thoughts by introducing him into the series?
Well, he made his very, very first appearance in my second novel. He was the detective constable that Barbara chose to bring with her when they brought Stuart Rintoul in. Stuart Rintoul was a member of the titled class. He was, I think he was an earl. And so she chose Encada to go with her to bring him in, because she figured that that would be probably the most outrageous thing for her to do. So you have this working class sergeant and this black detective constable. He is one of two children. His brother has been in prison for murder on a minimum 20-year sentence for many years. His name is Harold, but they call him Stony. And so he has moved from prison to prison and is currently in Wandsworth Prison in London. Winston's mother is from Jamaica, and his father is from Africa, and they live in it's not. I can't think of the name. Sorry, I'm having a moment. They live on the south part of the river in a housing estate where for many years was sort of a down at heel place to live, but which is becoming, as so much of South London is, which is becoming gentrified. So they are some of the remaining people on this housing estate. His father's a bus driver, and his mother owns a cafe not too far from where they live. And in her cafe, she started out very humbly in a food market, and then was able, I'm not in a outdoor market in there in South London, and she has moved along, and she was finally able to open a cafe. And so that's sort of the background of who he is. He's ambitious. But he has complete respect for Lindley, and he has a really sort of what I like to think of as kind of a charming camaraderie with Barbara Havers.
Yeah. I think many Swedish readers fell in love with the Lindley and Havers series already in the 1990s and have followed it since. And at that time, we had almost no women crime writers in Sweden at all. That has, of course, changed a lot over time. Today, more than half of the Swedish writers who are here at the festival are women. But the crime scene has gone through a lot of changes. And you've been active in the international crime scene for that long. What do you see as the biggest changes that has happened in the crime fiction circle?
To be honest with you, I did not know that that there were so few women writers in Sweden when I first got published, because in England, and my books, all take place in England, the major crime writers were, since the 1940s on, probably earlier that actually, since the 1920s, were women. So when you talk about the golden age of mystery in Great Britain, you're talking about Agatha Christie, Marjorie Allingham, especially Dorothy L. Sayers, and later on P.D. James. And there's this whole list of British female writers who really were much more at the forefront than the male writers in crime. In the United States, it was, it's hard to look back and remember exactly what it was like when I first got published. I know that Sue Grafton at that point, the Alphabet books, was very popular, and she and I think we published our first books roughly about the same period of time. And there were a number of minor female crime writers, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. I just mean that they were not at that point selling really largely the way they are now. But now, I'd say it's probably pretty even in the United States, and it really is a matter of taste. So there are some writers who are doing the hard-boiled mysteries. There are some writers in the United States that are doing what are called the cozies. There's some doing crime novels, and there's some doing police procedurals. So there's pretty much something for every taste now in this country.
Yeah, that's very much the same here today, I would say.
Yeah. Oh,
But
that's
there has
great.
been a great change. I thought we'd get back to the Something to Hide, the novel that is out here right now. It starts off with this Nigerian police officer, Theodora, or Theo Bontempi. She's died in London, and this brings Lynn Lee and the others' investigation in contact with genital mutilation of women. Könsstympning brukar vi säga på svenska. What made you interested in writing about this issue, and how did you come across it?
Well, a number of years ago, I had a conversation with my daughter's, my adopted daughter's aunt. And her aunt is an international lawyer, and she was at that time working on the issue of what is called commonly cutting. And so she was talking about it and the different forms that it takes, from female genital mutilation at the far worst, horrible end, to women who feel they have to reduce the size of their external genitalia for one reason or the other, sometimes because of because it causes them issues in athletics, and it causes them issues um, in the way they look at themselves. So when she was first talking about it, I thought this would make a really good topic to explore in my book at the same time as I'm exploring a crime. For a long time now, I've tried to do two things at once. One is to take on a social issue, and the other is to have a crime that occurs that allows me to explore that social issue. So in Something to Hide, the social issue was female genital mutilation and how prevalent it is. Not only in some of the areas of Africa, particularly the Sudan, but also in London itself, where there are big communities of people from various tribes in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa. So I thought that would be something that people really needed to be made aware of.
Yeah, I think we have the same problem with that in Sweden, but it's hard to come to terms with because it's in such close circuits somehow.
Right, right.
Yeah.
They used to have this arrangement at the airports where the police were stationed, and they were supposed to be on the lookout for women traveling with young girls from London with tickets to Nigeria, or women coming back from Nigeria with young girls who were wearing adult-oriented clothing. And what they discovered is that while they were able to catch some people that way, it really is a matter of education more than a matter of catching them before the fact or after the fact. So now they concentrate on education in the community, and they have a division of the Metropolitan Police, just like the division that I write about in the book. They have a division whose reason for being is all kinds of abuse of women, not just female genital mutilation, but I mean, there are various things that go along with the way women are abused. Not only we think of it, I think often as domestic violence, emotional, psychological violence, and trauma, but there are other physical things that are done to women. The most horrible being something that's called breast ironing, where they don't want their girls to look as if they are available for men to pursue or to be interested in. And so what they do is bind their breasts with heavy stones. They put heavy stones on their breasts and then bind them and bind them and bind them until they're managed to flatten them out. And you can just imagine how painful that is. It's sort of like, what they did to the Chinese women in past centuries with their feet. This is different, of course, but it's the same thing, where something really painful is inflicted upon women for a reason that has really nothing to do with who they are as individuals.
How do you choose these social issues that you include in your books?
I generally don't have to hunt for them, to tell you the truth. I did one on arranged marriage within the Anglo-Pakistani community, and I remember thinking that, London is an enormous melting pot. It's really a great international city where there are so many different cultures, and where there are so many languages spoken. And at that time, I had never really dipped into any of the other communities. And so I chose the Anglo-Pakistani community, and I began by reading about it. And then at that point, discovered how arranged marriages affected the lives of Anglo-Pakistani women. And then ultimately I found a woman who had an arranged marriage, and she and I talked at great length. And she ultimately became the reader of the book, and also the person who read the analyses of all the Anglo-Pakistani characters to see if I was doing it correctly. So that grew out of the idea that I wanted to feature another community rather than just white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. I really wanted to look at the fact that this is a big multicultural group of people. When I did my book about Parliament, in the presence of the enemy, I wanted to explore Parliament. I wanted to see what it was like to be a member of the House of Commons, what that took, what that did to you, what that did to your family. And then as an interesting aside, I had a conversation with American crime writer Sue Grafton, and she was on the letter K. And I said, "Are you doing K as for kidnap?" And she said, "God knows I tried, but I couldn't do it." And so I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do a kidnapping novel. And so it became a kidnapping novel, but then it was set within the world of the Houses of Parliament. So it was sort of, I got to do two things at once.
I know you have also been teaching creative writing, and normally during these festivals we have a lot of aspiring authors in the audience. Do you have any specific tips or recommendations or advice for them?
I think the most important thing is that something that was said to me by P.D. James. I had just, the night I met P.D. James at a book signing, my second book had just been rejected. So my first book was rejected. I went on to write a second book, that was rejected. And so that night I met P.D. James. And, I asked her, I said, "How long did it take you to get published?" And she said, I'll never forget this. She said, "Now, my dear, things were very different then." So I knew she was going to tell me that her first book was the book that got published. And which indeed was. She remains the only author that I know of who's never been rejected. But anyway, so then she said, "You have done something that most people only dream of. You have written a novel. You must never give up." And I took that to heart. I didn't keep sending out the same novel, but I continued writing until I got to the third novel, which was A Great Deliverance, and that was the one that got published. And as I was writing it, I could see how much my writing had changed and how much I had really grown and learned about crime writing. So what I would say to people is keep doing what you're doing and do not give up, because another thing I kept on my desk was this little quote I had seen in the Los Angeles Times. They had been interviewing a writer, and the writer said, "The people who get published are the people who don't give up." And I would definitely keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. I think that's very good advice. Unfortunately, our time is up here, but it's been so nice to be able to talk to you, and thank you again for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Så.